Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me acknowledge the presence of the Minister of Sports, Youth and Religious Affairs at the head table, local journalist Michael Bascom, and our special guest, four-time Olympic medalist, Mr. Chris Brown. I'd also like to recognize members of the local organizing committee for the Grenada Invitational, representatives of the athletic fraternity, potential sponsors of the Grenada Invitational, that's why you're here, members of the media, welcome all. My name is Dexter Mitchell. I am the chair of the local organizing committee for the Grenada Invitational. Before we start this morning's proceeding, I would like to invite Coach Dennis Williams to invoke the presence of the Lord.
Thank you. Let's just bow our heads in reverence and humility before God as I read to you from Romans chapter 12, verse 6 to 8. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. Father, you have blessed each and every one of us with different gifts. And you have said in your scriptures, O Lord, that we've all been given different gifts. We pray, O Lord, that we use our gifts, dear Father, so that this event will be a very successful one. We thank you for those who are here this morning. We thank you for bringing us here. We pray your blessings and guidance on this morning's proceedings. And as we pray, O Lord, for your blessing, we also encourage knowing that you're a Lord God, Almighty God, who look down on each and every one of us. Continue to give us the gift of humility and give us the gift of unity so that we'll work together as one, so that at the end of the day, we'll all be drawn closer to you. We pray, Lord, that as we use the gift that you have given to us, through sports, O Lord, that we'll all run the race to the kingdom that you have prepared for each and every one of us. Bless all those who are here, and bless us, dear Father, as we continue with our proceedings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Coach. The idea for the Grenada Invitational came about after months and months and months of conversations, thanks to the benefits of Magic Jack and WhatsApp, between myself and Michael Bascom. The conversations were always about what is wrong, but what could be fixed, what can be done for sports development in Grenada. And we started toying with the idea of an international track and field meet. And we came up with a formula that speaks to world-class athletes plus world-class facilities should be equal to world-class events. And we kind of stuck to that theme as we went through the process of developing a proper invitational, international meet, a meet of international standards. This morning we are going to hear the rest of the story unfold. The presenters this morning will speak to what the requirements are for hosting an international meet, what the expectations are, and hopefully through the media we can present to Grenada, the region, and the rest of the world our plans for the Grenada Invitational. So I'll now invite Michael Bascom, and let me go through his portfolio. Michael is currently a member of the International Sports Press Association. He's also president of the Caribbean Sports Journalists Association. He is chairman of the Media Commission of NACAC, which is the North American, Central American, and Caribbean Athletics Association, and was recently appointed a venue press officer for CONCACAF Champions League. Bascom has covered 5 Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, World Championships, Pan American Games, and Carifta Games. So he brings to the Grenada Invitational a wealth of experience, both from, well, obviously from a journalistic standpoint, but from being present and seeing how those events are planned and how they are executed. So ladies and gentlemen, to begin unfolding the story of the Grenada Invitational, welcome Michael Bascom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Sports Minister, Honorable Roland Bola, Olympian, and just let me make a correction, 5-time Olympian. We need to include Rio. So yes, 5-time Olympian, Chris Brown of the Bahamas, members of the local organizing committee of the Grenada Invitational, specially invited guests, see Mr. Grant and others who have been very, very supportive of the Grenada Invitational. The media, good morning. Well, as the chairman indicated, it was an idea, a discussion, and now a few steps from becoming a reality. Today is basically the first step in many strides for the Grenada Invitational. Allow me to explain briefly the genesis of the Grenada Invitational. Earlier this year, while sitting right here at the National Stadium, January 23rd to be exact, that's for the opening of the stadium, I asked myself what happens after the grand opening, the fanfare, and the few activities that were scheduled for the first few months of 2016. So when the Grenada Athletic Association, in response to an inquiry about whether they have any plans to stage an area permit meet, you'll be hearing a lot about the APM, and they said, well, there are no plans for the APM, I immediately jumped on that opportunity. So the next step was to discuss this idea with 3 persons in particular, which I always say that we have our own cabinet meeting almost on a daily basis. Former Ambassador George McLeish in New York, former Sports Minister Patrick Simmons, and Dexter. So Dexter and I religiously speak every morning, even if it's just for 5 minutes, as we see, just touching base on what's happening. And obviously, most of it has to be on sports. So Dexter and I will be working on, well, Dexter in Grenada and myself in New York, to get the feel, and started writing up proposals. And we started tossing around the idea and various formats and names of the meets. And I recall traveling to Eugene, Oregon, specifically to discuss the Grenada Invitational, then to Bydgoszcz in Poland, regarding other possibilities. But it was just information gathering. But there was a period when we believed that the momentum was swinging away from us a bit. And while discussing this with Mr. Simmons, he suggested that I speak to the Prime Minister. His exact words were, that we quote, "We may have different political philosophy, but when it comes to sports, I give him that respect," unquote. Well, at first I thought Mr. Simmons, was just joking, But I decided to take his advice, and in just brief words, I wrote to the Prime Minister, explaining to him about this idea. Well, the Prime Minister responded, and Dexter, I checked 13 minutes now, in terms of when I wrote him and when he responded. And he basically said, "Michael," and I'm quoting, "I would love to discuss this possible international track meet with you as soon as possible." That was his exact words, unquote. The Prime Minister subsequently pledged government's, well, first of all, his personal support and then government support in such an initiative that he said should be driven by private individuals with private sector involvement. So I was traveling up and down the region, including the Chris Brown Bahamas Invitational, coast to coast, across the United States, looking at some of the meets. But there are so many things that needed to be done that people don't really recognize and observe before basically talking boldly about staging an international event as this caliber. There is the NACAC, for example, the NACAC and the IWF sanctioning through the Grenada Athletic Association. And these are things that we had to overcome. So there were meetings, both at the level of the Grenada Athletic Association and at the level of NACAC. But importantly, is making the contact with the athletes. So you could have all these things in place, but if you cannot make contact with the athletes, that is your biggest problem. And I think, to an extent, the Trinidad Grand Games, for example, flopped in May of this year because they believed they could have done it on their own. So, after returning from the Olympic Games, in fact, we spent 3 weeks in Rio, and Chris and I, many times, will have meals together, and it was surprising that I never discussed this thing with Chris in Rio. It's only after he returned to Atlanta and I returned to New York, I called Chris, and Chris immediately was willing to get on board when I explained to him what we had in mind. And what was striking about that is that, why is Chris Brown? Why not, someone else? But if I may just include first, I got to know Chris. I knew Chris before, but I got to know Chris very personal in 2013 when the IWF had a day in the life, and we were visiting all the islands in the Caribbean, and Bahamas was one of it, and Chris was one. And Chris invited us. In fact, he was the only of all the athletes in the region who invited us to his home, to his family. We called traveling to Eleuthera, the island he's from in the Bahamas. And, his family, his kids, his wife, his mother, And we got to know who is Chris Brown. Unlike the other athletes that we just went to the gym, like Bolt and Blake and, all the others, and, fast cars and, big houses and things like that. But Chris opened that part of his life. So that is why when thinking about a Grenada invitation and who is the person that most likely will be able to make that connection, Chris Brown came to mind. So I attended the two previous editions of the Chris Brown Invitational in Nassau, and I was amazed of the caliber of athletes who graced the presence of the Bahamas. And it was what I described, only short of the World Athletic Championships and the Olympics, you will see so much gathering of international athletes. So that again inspired me that Chris is the man. Our own Kirani James is a regular to the CBI, which is the Chris Brown Bahamas Invitational. Lawson Merritt, Justin Gatlin, Veronica Campbell-Brown, Shawnee Miller, all Olympic and world medalists. And the list continues. Of course, Chris is a man of surprises, and I cannot tell you from here what sort of surprise Chris has in mind for us for 2017. I spent a week in the Bahamas this year observing the operations of the Chris Brown Bahamas Invitational, and believe and trust me, Chris is committed to making whatever he's involved in a real success. Chris, no doubt, essentially brings a wealth of experience and expertise in organizing a track meet at the highest level, and I'm confident that the Grenada Invitational will be no exception. In fact, if you look at the social postings of some of the top athletes in the world, they will make reference to the Chris Brown Bahamas Invitational. In fact, Lashon Merritt is going to the Bahamas, I think, this week or next week, just for vacation, because of the experience he had in the Bahamas. So, think about the Grenada Invitational. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're onto an inaugural but historic event for Grenada. And I encourage those who are still debating about getting on board to jump on that ship, because this could be a turning point for sports and sports tourism for Grenada, and you could proudly say that you have played your part. Ultimately, this is not about seeing world stars in Grenada, but also ensuring that the Grenadian public is afforded an opportunity to experience world-class track and field, and importantly, inspired young talents in Grenada. Chris had the experience of meeting the students of the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School earlier this week on Tuesday, and also interactive discussion with the members of the successful Intercall champion team, that's SAS, and I know Chris will speak about that, and it was so inspiring of how the athletes felt warm, and in fact they wanted us to leave. We spent the entire day, almost the entire day, had lunch, everything up there at SAS, and that is the sort of experience Chris is bringing to Grenada. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you and look forward to your cooperation and involvement for the Grenada Invitational scheduled for April 8th, 2017. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. During the discussions, been on the phone with Michael over and over, and how can we do a Grenada Invitational? How can we get some of the top athletes in the world to Grenada? We had many headaches. Is it possible? You know, the appearances of the athletes and so on. And one day Michael called and said, spoke to Chris Brown. Like, okay. And then he called back and said, Chris Brown is interested. Like, okay. Then he said, Chris Brown is going to the Bahamas, and when he gets back, he'll indicate whether he'll be available to help us. And in fact, he was in the Bahamas, and he texts back Michael to say, yes, he's available to help Grenada. Not only help Grenada, but give us what probably is one of the premier dates on the track and field schedule. Every time we have one of those storms or hurricane heading towards Grenada, and it goes just north of us, we like to exclaim that God is a Grenadian. I am convinced God is a Grenadian, he's an athlete, and he's a 400-meter runner. It is an immense pleasure to have had the company of Chris for the last 4 or 5 days to share his knowledge. We did a 2.5-hour tour of the stadium yesterday, and I was not talking to the athlete, I was talking to an event manager. He was very, very, very thorough. We went to every room in the National Stadium, looked at everything. And for us Grenadians, we don't pay attention to the noise that the generator at Grenada makes. And as soon as Chris walked in, he said that could be a problem. Imagine athletes on the starting blocks and the generator is making that noise. So things like that kind of detail. So to continue unfolding the story of the Grenada Invitational, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Protocol has already been established. First of all, I'd like to thank you to the lovely people of Grenada for inviting me here and let me be a part of this. It's truly a blessing. Once I got the phone call from Mr. Bascom, you know, the first question I asked was, how come you didn't talk to me in Rio? So he said, no, Chris. You was here for a reason and a purpose, and I was here for a reason and a purpose. So I said, well, no problem, you know. But once he shared the information and what he wanted to do for his people, I said, you see a vision, and I share that vision with you, because Grenada has a world-class stadium. Grenada has world-class athletes. I ran against Garani and Aileen Franzik, whom I retired. Only because I'm still running. But what was missing was the world-class competition of an invitational. Now, an invitational of that magnitude, me having the opportunity to do it at home, there was, how should I say it? There was a lot of things that I learned behind the scenes, actually even before putting on Invitational, because a few people looked at me and like, you a track star, how is it that you're going to be able to put on an event and also run? I said, well, my faith is strong. It's very strong. I said, God says, if you step out on faith, he will carry you the rest of the way. So I decided that I was going to juggle 2 balls at the same time and add a 3rd ball, which I can't even juggle. So, long story short, I did what I needed to do. I made the phone calls, I checked out the facility, and with that being said and done, we created something new. And first time event, it was very successful. My lending help here is to do the same thing in Grenada. I want to make sure that when this circuit starts, Grenada has the first invitational in the region, meaning athletes will all be landing on Grenada soil at the same time. There's nowhere else in the world that on that day you're going to get the World Olympic stars showing up, but here in Grenada. So Grenada will have the first opportunity to witness world-class performance way before the World Championships, way before the Olympic Games. You guys who don't get a chance and opportunity to go to Rio, or who's not going to go into the Olympic Games in 2020, or the World Championships that will be held next year in the World Champ's going to be in London. Sorry. I'm performing, and that's where the athletes now, if I was in the athlete suit, then I would remember that. But being in the meat promoter suit, you got to know how to juggle the caps. So if you're not going to get an opportunity to be in London next year, you don't have to worry, because we're going to bring London here in Grenada. So first on hand, all of the elite athletes will be here. We're still in negotiating mood. So we're working on the kinks, making sure we could get the right big names and the caliber of what you see on the international level. And that's not a problem, because we look for competition and we support the region. There is many competition over in Europe, Asia, Africa, and we are all over the world. The only places we are not really regularly is at home and inside of the region. Now that Grenada has a world-class facility with world-class athletes, I believe that Grenada deserves a world-class competition, and I'm here to help that happen. I want to make sure when we launch to the world, they know Grenada is coming. They know you have the people, you have the stadium. They know we can host a world-class competition in Grenada. And we want to make the rest of the countries in the region watch and see what we can do in Grenada, Grenada style. We want to bring out those horns, those conch shells. We want to involve Grenada to the fullest, and we want this to be a spice thing, not just show up to a track meet and perform and leave and go home. We want people to feel the culture and the people, the warm feeling the warm welcome that I receive. That is what we want to show the world, and I'm here to make sure that we can do that. I'm here to help in any which way, and mind do I say, we will have a show, and this is something that you guys remember. I'm happy to be a part of history, because many people would be calling and would love to be a part of this, who's not a part of it now. So make sure you get ready for your phone to be ringing, because once we start and take off, the world will be focused on Grenada. All of the elite athletes that will be showing up, they have thousands of followers, not 5,000 or 3,000. They have 30,000 and 70,000 followers. Some of them have 300,000 followers. And so when they send a tweet or Facebook or Snapchat and all that social media good stuff that the young folks like, that goes to the world. So even without being here, they will still know what's going on in Grenada at the drop of a dime. So you don't have to wait no more to find out when they get back what they're going to say about us. They will know the time they land to the day they leave exactly what's going on and how we treated the world when they showed up in Grenada. I want to make sure that that experience is a pleasant experience. I want to make sure that we know what we're doing. I want to make sure, and I want to be able to help in hosting something of this caliber. And I'm glad that Mr. Bascom chose me, and I'm glad that the government supports this event, and also private and any sponsors that are willing to join on, who hasn't joined on as of yet, because this is going to be big. We may sit here today, we may sit here and say, okay, it's a track meet going on, but this is big. You have some athletes, some don't even know where Grenada is. Some don't know, all they know is that's where Karani James from. So the world will now get the opportunity to know exactly where Grenada is, who lives in Grenada, and how the Grenada people behave. So we want to show them that we can host it, and you don't have to go all the way in Europe. Now we are at home. So I'm sure you guys want to see Karani James perform at home. So make sure we are all ready. I know I'm ready. I'm glad that I don't have the race against Karani, so that's a good thing. But I'm happy to be able to help, and any questions I'll be willing and ready to answer. Thank you, and you all have a blessed day, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Chris. Grenada Tourism Authority is well on board. We had a very good meeting with them yesterday. And to further expound on the role of the Tourism Authority, I invite the CEO, Mr. Rudy Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, the Honorable Roland Bowler, Minister responsible for sports, Mr. Chris Brown, five-time Olympian, Mr. Michael Bascom, members of the Grenada Athletic Association, sponsors and potential sponsors, business persons, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by saying that we are very, very excited and happy at the Grenada Tourism Authority to be supporting this event. We believe that events such as these help to showcase Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique as a tourism destination. You know, earlier this year, we were fortunate to have two activities which took place in March. Those activities being CONCACAF Women's Football as well as CARIFTA. And we saw in March an increase in our visitor arrivals of 15%. And I just reflect on that to tell you that whenever we have events and activities such as these, we see an increase in our visitor arrival numbers. But it doesn't just happen like that. And you would have heard a number of persons speaking already this morning. We have the infrastructure here in Grenada to facilitate international meets. We have the expertise and the competence and the capacity to put on a high-level international event. And we at the Grenada Tourism Authority, we are extremely happy to be able to partner with the local organizing committee, to be able to partner with Chris Brown in ensuring that this activity is truly a success. And the success is not only going to be measured by the number of visitors, the success is not only going to be measured by the number of persons who participate in the activities. I'm sure that this kind of activity will have significant economic benefits as well. Benefits for hoteliers, benefits for car operators, benefits for taxi operators, vendors, shopkeepers, the ordinary man and the ordinary woman. And that is why the Grenada Tourism Authority, we are very excited in supporting this activity and supporting this event. Let me say as well that I think that it speaks significant volumes to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique to be able to partner with an individual such as Chris Brown. There's no doubt, you know, and while I was standing in the back this morning, and I was watching the videos with the various races, and I started to reflect on athletics in Grenada. I said, you know, this is Karani James' country, and Grenada has become known on the international athletic stage because of Karani James. And this is an opportunity with an event such as this to be able to showcase our destination. Partnering with Chris Brown is a very good and positive thing. We expect that there will be quite a number of regional and international media here as well. And that allows us the opportunity for persons to be exposed to the culture, to be exposed to the uniqueness of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. As we seek at the Tourism Authority to showcase and to keep our destination top of mind, one of the things that our partners continually say to us is about the authenticity of our destination. It is not a destination that is fabricated. It is not a destination that is created. And Chris this morning referenced the hospitality of Grenadians. Chris referenced this morning the manner in which he has been feeling since he has gotten here to our destination. And we want, therefore, with this event to open our homes, open our destination for the world to see. The fact that Chris is here partnering with us demonstrates that at the very highest level in track and field, at the international level with a 5-time Olympian, we are able to partner to encourage persons to come here and to encourage persons to be exposed to what we have to offer as a destination. So that this morning, I'm extremely happy on behalf of the Grenada Tourism Authority to give our support to this event, to continue to ensure that through the local organizing committee, we partner with the accommodation sector, we partner with airlines as well to ensure that the level of necessary airlift is available to bring persons here to our destination, and that we will continue to give of our best to ensure that this event is indeed a success, and it will definitely demonstrate the capacity that Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique has to put on such a unique international activity. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grant. And one of the points Mr. Grant touched on is our capacity to host a successful international event. In that regard, we have solicited the expertise of some fantastic Grenadians already. And after the presentations, I would give a full outline of the members of the local organizing committee. But one of the members, and somebody who has a very important role, would be the meet director. Lots of experience, very patient, very accommodating, and we have such a person in Mr. Colin Peters from the Ministry of Sports. He is responsible for the athletic and technical component of the Grenada Invitational, so I would invite him to say a few words in that regard. Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Dexter. Here and I'm very patient is a nice thing this morning. I think that's the best thing. My daughter will say, boy, they don't know you. Morning, everyone. Honorable Roland Bowler, Minister of Sports, Mr. Grant from the GTA, Mr. Michael Bascom, organizer of the local organizing committee, the fireman himself, Chris Brown. We want to welcome all our sponsors. I could see you being on board because I'm so excited just sitting there listening. You know, at first when I heard of such event, I feel great. I feel excited. I've been in sports for over 20 years and more. You know, won CARAFTA medals. I've been at Intercor, been at CARAFTA. And I know that the athletes that we produce, you know, internationally. And I always have a saying to athletes as a coach that we athletes, we are success story. We are winners. Because when the time gets tough, we don't sit down. Imagine on the 400-meter track, you run in front, and he have to wait for the gun just as everybody else, and he don't collapse. So that is the determination and discipline. The first thing that come into mind when I heard of such track and field meet is our last meet in Rio, the Olympics Games. But the opportunity to showcase our athletes, our local athletes, is the first thing that come into my mind also, one of the important things that come into my mind. We just had CARAFTA Games where we support the athletes and we celebrated the medals that we won. And we see the importance to our development program that we have to our local Grenada Athletics Association that we go around every Saturday morning. The base of our sports are still on our young athletes. So with that, we'll give the opportunity for the athletes from the best athletes and performance from the primary school games, from the national games, from all our sport that will be held. We'll give them the opportunity to compete in that meet, in the Grenada Invitation. So we'll start with the prep, the midgets, the 12 and under, the 14 and under, the 16 and under, the 18 and under, and the 18 plus. We'll give them the opportunity to compete among the best in the world. For our senior athletes that always complain all over for a long period that they do not have any competition, we'll also give them an opportunity by providing a lane for them in some of our international events to compete among the best, which I think is wonderful. We hope with the launch of this meet and informing the athletes with all the meet that we are preparing for 2017, as I mentioned, the private school games, the National Primary School Games, the Intercall Games, knowing that you'll be given the opportunity to compete among some of the world-class athletes that will promote you, will help you to get up if you haven't gotten up already and start training. That excitement should be felt, and this is our foundation of the sport. Could you imagine having your 9-year-old competing the same day as a Kiwani James or a Merit on the same track? The opportunity will go internationally. So we'll be able to showcase our talent at the developmental program. The games is scheduled to start by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And in the start, we'll go from 2 to 8:30. We'll include some of the school events and some of the regional and international events within that time limit. We're looking to have some of the international events every hour. We'll make it exciting, fun and excitement, and a good package for all our spectators. We'll include the 100 meters, the 200 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters, 1,500 meters. Some of our field events, so we have some of the biggest names in the javelin. I could think about Anderson Peters and have Josh Botham to compete against some of the best in the world in that field. So we're not only showcasing the international athletes or international athletes, we also want to get the young stars, the young athletes to get that opportunity to compete. I must say thanks for the opportunity and for the support that has been given to sports in Grenada for as long as I can remember. And we have seen at the Rio Olympics the performance of some of our top athletes, or the Catalan, Cut Felix and Lyndon Toussaint. We have seen Kiwani James and all others compete. We have seen them the 4 years before. And we know when people are aware of Grenada and our potential. At KFT Games, our athletes compete well. So we're expecting, just by today and the launch and the media going out and setting up the event outside it, we expect to see more people at Tantin, more athletes at SAS, more athletes at St. Patrick, more athletes at St. John, competing and training so that they could be focused or showcased among some of the best in the world. So we want to thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys being part of that committee and part of the sport come the 8th of April. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peters. It would be remiss of me if I did not acknowledge the presence of the brother of Kiwani James. Gary James is with us this morning. He just completed a first degree in sports medicine. Thank you for being here. As I mentioned before, the success of the Grenada Invitational has to do with several agencies working together. And one such very, very critical agency is the Grenada Athletic Association. In fact, the initial permission to host such a game had to go through the Grenada Athletic Association, and they were very accommodating. The application to NACAC and the IAAF sanctioning and so on has to go through the Grenada Athletic Association, and we are very grateful that they're on board with us. We have the PRO of the Athletic Association, Kwame Hippolyte, to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Minister of Sports, Mr. Roland Buller, Chris Brown, Chairman of the Local Organizing Committee, Mr. Dexter Mitchell, Michael Bascom, members of the Local Organizing Committee, potential sponsors, the media, good morning. The Grenada Athletic Association believes that a meet of this nature would have occurred in Grenada at some point in time. And the private individuals coming together of such an initiative is taking the idea of an international meet of that nature earlier than we expected. The Grenada Athletic Association earlier on this year did start some form of discussion as to hosting an area permit meet to some extent. We did not see it happening this year, and so we are delighted to be a part of this initiative in ensuring that a meet of this nature happens in Grenada sooner than expected. The Grenada Athletic Association's role in this Grenada International is to ensure that meet conforms to the international standards as set out by the IAAF. The Grenada Invitational will be considered among the IAAF calendar as an area permit meet. being a meet sanctioned by the regional body responsible for athletics in the region, that is NACAC, and the meet would have to meet certain standards in ensuring that it is considered an area permit meet. One being so is that it should be able to obviously follow the rules of the IAAF and the regulations. The prize monies must be at a certain amount for the athletes. The number of athletes competing in the event must be of an international, or if they are within the top 100, we must have at least 3 in the event. That is why when Mr. Peters spoke of ensuring that some of our local athletes are part of these events, that is with the direction in which the IAAF wants to go, in ensuring the continued development of the sport in the region. The Grenada Athletic Association will ensure that the Grenada Invitational meets the IAAF standard by ensuring that our officials continue the high standard that they have portrayed over the years in our events. The Grenada Invitational is coming at the backdrop of an extremely successful character event. Successful in not only in the terms of the success of the Grenada team, but successful in the name that we have placed, or the standard that we have placed on the character event in relation to previous years. We are not sure, or we are looking forward to character games come 2017. And we are wondering whether or not any country in the Caribbean region can live up to the standards in terms of the professional nature in which we executed the event. So much so, the president of the IAAF, Lord Coe, in his correspondence to the Grenada Athletic Association, will continuously allude to the fact of the nature at which he was surprised at the nature at which we were able to host a character event, and also his experience that he had in Grenada. So a meet of this nature will not only benefit the development of athletics in Grenada, but also the wider country. In addition, the Grenada Invitational, as I said earlier on, is timely, and it falls directly into the goals and development of athletics in Grenada. Most importantly, in terms of the goal of the IAAF, in terms of repositioning the sport of athletics, not only in the different regions around the world, but also internationally. Our president at this time is trying to move in ensuring that the sport of athletics is repositioned from not only being in the top 10, but being in the top 4. And he's committed by ensuring that we have a number of reforms. Area permit meets and developmental programs are now highly funded by the IAAF. The Grenada Invitational will be considered, will be, because it will receive some level of funding from the IAAF. And what we can simply do is lobby the IAAF to ensure that they increase the amount of monies that they would give to the Grenada Invitational to ensure that we have a successful event. Through the programs and opportunities that we have been associated with in the past, we are ensuring that the best persons are able to be associated with the Grenada Invitational. Just in the persons of Mr. Peters, who is also a member of the executive, and the experience that he is going to bring from the previous hostings of successful intercall games, and also some of our officials who are considered the best among the region. Our support of Mr. Bascom in many of the opportunities within the region from an athletic point of view, and likewise ensuring that we have the best person represented on the LOC, that is our president, who is detailed, and he will ensure that the LOC conforms with the requirements of the NACAC region as well as the IAAF. We will support, we are on board, and we encourage persons because we believe that this invitational will assist in not only the development at the senior level, but also at the prep and the lower age groups. We are ready. I think from the buzz that we are hearing within or among our athletes is our athletes especially are really looking forward to competing at this Grenada Invitational. Let us go. Let us show the world that we can do it again, because we did it in the past with character, and we certainly can put on. And if from sitting into one of the meetings on Tuesday, with the expertise that we have, that I've noticed on the LOC, as well as our ability to produce top-class events, track and field events in Grenada, and the expertise of Chris Brown, I think that the Grenada Invitational will be one that will be an envy to many of the big countries such as Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and even Jamaica when we unfold on the particular day. Not only that, let me commend you, Mr. Brown. I think, and looking at your visit, noticing your visit with the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School, I think it gives a good indication for our athletes that they should always look at giving back something to the sport. And your involvement with your meet over the past few years and partnering with the LOC will certainly assist the further development of the sport within the region, because I firmly believe that we have the best sprinters, we have the best athletes in the sport of athletics, and they should at some point in time compete so that our people, the Caribbean people, can see what they have been displaying in Europe over the past few years. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Kwame. Michael mentioned that when we started discussing the Grenada Invitational, he sent an email to the Prime Minister and he responded within 15 minutes. Subsequent to that, a cabinet reshuffle was announced. And I said, oh, here we go again, politics getting in the way of plans. And we waited until the reshuffle was announced and the various portfolios were announced. And I think we were trying to call each other at the same time because we were ecstatic that the Honorable Roland Bowler was given the portfolio of sports. And to date, he has not failed our excitement. He has been on board, in his words, 110% so far. So I'm excited that he's on board with the Grenada Invitational, and I invite Honorable Roland Bowler to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mitchell. And I'm very careful when I speak about Mitchell. You know, I need to say it with some level of respect, and you should understand why I want to recognize in our midst Mr. Brown, as he's been nicknamed the fireman, yes, and of course Michael Bascom, members of the LOC, potential sponsors, members of the media, and of course sitting right at the back for whatever reason, a former Minister of Sports himself, Mr. Siemens. I didn't recognize that you had on your glasses. I almost didn't make you out there. I mean, or you're getting younger. My eyes going back. I believe that might be the problem. Be that as it may, I really feel, you know, the warmth and enjoyment of being here. It's really a pleasure, and I am happy to see so many faces at this morning's lunch. Before Dexter and I had our first encounter, the Honorable Prime Minister called me to a little session one morning, and he said to me, there are a group of guys that are planning this event, and they had an initial meeting, and he felt that is something that we should support. And in his normal words, sometimes when he speaks to his ministers, he said, Bola, I need you to take this one and run with it. So, I mean, I don't think I had a choice. So the 10% over the 100 is what came from the Prime Minister. I know he's giving you his 100% support. We need to look, ladies and gentlemen, at this event as one with special interest, one of its kind. Because I was there for a while thinking, and then I asked Michael a while ago, do you think there'd ever be a time or a chance, looking at the region, that we might be able to host an Olympic Games. And, he chuckled a little bit and he said he doesn't think so. So I think here we have an opportunity to bring to the region and to Grenada in particular what we may not otherwise be able to do in terms of holding an Olympic Games. And I see it from that prospect. I see the Grenada Invitational as doing exactly what I think the philosophy of our government wants. It cannot be government alone. I do not know that the government has the capacity, has the human and financial resource to pull something like that off all by itself. And that is why when government decides to make an investment in sports, we oftentimes say to people, we are doing it on many occasions, being cognizant of the fact that the funds that you're putting into the facilities and the development of facilities, and of course sometimes training, could be spent otherwise in areas that arguably the public might say is much more necessary to be spent. There's another thing that we need to remember is that the dividends from the investment in sports takes a while to come. But I think this one, for us in Grenada, would be a big payoff. And that's a context in which I want us to see this event. And that is why we need to have support from every angle. I remembered recently when we had the secondary school games, moving away from the character, only recently. One of the athletes from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I recall, speaking on a one-on-one with me, asked, why can't we do more? You have such a lovely facility here in Grenada to have more regional competitions where athletes from the region can come together much more often to compete with one another. Wonderful idea, but all of us would know in terms of the cost and to bring everyone together, it is not always easy. I believe the world will want to support us. I believe that the involvement of Chris Brown to help us sell this event and to promote it internationally would give us an opportunity to showcase Grenada. And the positive spill-off effects of it can be tremendous. Mr. Grant from the tourism aspect did speak about our taxi drivers and hoteliers and so getting a greater opportunity in a time when it's not normally the real height of the tourist season. But I even want to break it down further than that. Our farmers or regular vendors at the village level, because I recall in discussion with Mr. Mitchell, we spoke about this, the week leading up to the games. It should be a week when there should be a lot of sporting activities, the intercall and everything preceding that in the same week. And hoping that we can be in a position to bring the athletes in, a couple of days before the event itself. So they'd have an opportunity to go to Fish Friday. Hope they wouldn't drink too much because, when the Grenadian locals beat them up, we don't want them to say it's the Grenadian rum caused that. We want them to have a good time and a good experience. And Grenadians, being who they are, would always try to make it a good event for them. I am happy as Minister with responsibility for sports, but speaking now on behalf of government, we are extremely happy to be partnering with local individuals, with other people. And I did say when we initially made the announcement that this event was not the brainchild of the Ministry of Sports, nor the government, and we have to give credit where it is due, and that it was private sector individual, but we have accepted it and come on board and would want to support it 100%. I'd want to make a request though, because Mr. Peters would tell you in recent times we've been having a lot of discussions. There are so many areas in sports that there's an expectation that the Ministry of Sports should participate in and should do more. And we always have to tussle between how do you sports, where do you put it, where would it be best utilized? Do we use it to train brand new athletes that are coming on the scene? Should we put it towards those who are already established and help them to become better? Do you spend it all on facilities? And there's always that headache as to where would you get the best investment in terms of that. So I would really hope that that event would not be a one-off, but that it would be successful enough so that it can become annual. But coming out of that, that we can probably put another program in place where we can take on board some of our younger and upcoming athletes, where they would not only compete among the best in the world, but that some of the proceeds, and I don't know how much that will be, could be put towards helping to develop, an elite group from among the athletes that we have. That in itself, again, would be another positive. So it is not just about the exposure of the country. It is not just about showcasing Grenada and establishing it as an international sports tourism venue, but the parents and the villages can say, well, look, we have another of our athletes, another one walking in the vein of Kirani James or Taplin or any of our international stars. And that of itself, I believe, would be tremendous for us. So again, friends, we are there as a government, as a ministry. Whenever Mr. Mitchell speaks to me and I speak to other people, I always pass on to him ideas that I get. I do not want to be in the front line. It is not our program, it is not our plan. We are just playing a supportive role. And I would always say to him, what do you think about involving this organization or that organization or getting a representative from here or there to assist you? And I am being kept up to date, and I'm very excited as of this time. And I do hope that we will continue to build the momentum, that we will continue to speak about it, that we will continue to prepare for it, and that the government itself will continue to get the support, because as we move to do more, we are actually now looking, in fact, the contracts have been awarded, the contract, not contracts, but the contract have now been awarded to an English company to do the lighting of the cricket stadium. We are in negotiations with some local individuals as well who are preparing to bring to Grenada some English teams, starting with college teams, for similar purposes to compete against our locals and to have an event. But more importantly, we are in discussions with regional bodies, business people and otherwise, to see if we can develop our own 2020 franchise here in Grenada, because we recognize if we are to continue to build on the Sports Tourism Trust, we need to invest, one, but we also need to prepare for what is to come. It's a long shot away, but with the lighting, pretty costly. And I think I need to make a correction here, because there's a gentleman who said to me, maybe in error we did say that the cost of the lighting may be $8 million US, but it's actually EC. That was confirmed. It's $8 million EC dollars, yes? And so if there was a little fright in the minds of people, it's not US, so it's about 1.5 times less what we were thinking, $8 million EC dollars. And so, having said that, again, I want to just commend and congratulate Michael and his team. I want to congratulate the LOC and the people who have accepted the offer to be part and parcel of the planning process. And Chris, again, you have expressed to me several times your love and appreciation of this country. I want to, in return, tell you that the people of Grenada love and appreciate you, and we look forward to continue to work with you and to make this event a massive success, and one that would live on for many, many years, maybe long after our time here, as sports administrators and all that. Thank you all very much, and let's continue to work together.
Thank you very much, Minister Bola. Interesting that the minister should mention an elite program. In fact, at the meeting yesterday with the Athletic Association, that discussion has begun, that the legacy effect of the Grenada Invitational, what can the Grenada Invitational do, apart from just showcasing the athletes on the day, which, by the way, is the 8th of April 2017, what can be used for the further development of athletics in Grenada, and that conversation has begun. Before we invite questions from the media, let me just announce the members of the LOC. This is the core group to date. We are going to add a couple more members to the group as we move along. There's a suggestion from the minister this morning, and that agency will be taken on board also. But the present composition of the local organizing committee for the Grenada Invitational, and the composition is such that every member of the LOC is a chair of a subcommittee. So that person has a specific responsibility, a specific sector, and is expected to deliver from that sector. Our technical director, Mr. Colin Peters, person responsible for marketing and sponsorship, Dexter Mitchell, media, press and publicity, Michael Bascom, and because Michael resides in the US, he will be assisted by Raul Titus. Finance, Mr. Fenton Frederick from Republic Bank, 17 years of banking experience. Accommodation and transportation, extremely qualified and experienced in that regard, Ms. Francine Stewart from the Grenada Tourism Authority. Medical, from the Ministry of Health, Dr. Francis Martin. Protocol and VIP, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Kerry Frank. Accreditation, Michael Bascom. Logistics, the king of sports and entertainment in Grenada, Mr. Wayne Wagiti Redhead. Awards and ticketing, Ms. Carlin Postle, the proprietor of Venus Sports Bar. Security, we are waiting the approval of the Royal Grenada Police Force to determine who will be the specific individual that they would send to us. The representative from the Grenada Athletic Association, Mr. Charlie George. Our recording secretary, Mrs. William Charles. And like I said, a couple more members will be added to the LOC after today's proceeding. I would like to say thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. Thank you to the media. You are going to be one of the agencies that we will be depending on to get the message out. But before we end, I would like to invite any questions for any members of the head table.
Yeah, good morning. I mean, as a sport fan, I'm really being lifted this morning. The number of wonderful things I've heard this morning, it makes me feel really happy. I've heard about elite athletes, I've heard about world-class competition, and I'm wondering about the incentives, and I'm wondering about the sort of athletes you're talking about. You talk about elite athletes, yes, but you must be thinking about some names that you're probably targeting at this time to ensure that that first meet will be something else.
Yes.
Didn't hear if Chris Brown will take part too.
Pardon?
Didn't hear if Chris Brown will be participating.
Well, the elite athletes that I'm targeting, I do have a number of elite athletes in my head that I'm targeting. Right now, I'm still in the negotiating phases, so I don't want to release any names right now. We are in the beginning stages. So the forthcoming, we will release names once we confirm who's coming, and that will be in the coming weeks, I'll say.
And as an international event, what's in store for these athletes in terms of the sort of gains, incentives, so to speak?
Well, this is what we do for a living. So there will be prizes, there will be awards that will be given. And not only that, but also there would be international coaches that would be on the shore. So those coaches will be able to see the juniors, and that will be through the exposure of those young individuals competing at home. And the coaches will be able to see exactly who will benefit, which athlete will be able to get a scholarship to run track overseas in the university. And so therefore they will be awarded, also the juniors definitely will be awarded the chance to get a scholarship, whereas you may have the talent here at home, but no one is there to really recognize that talent. And so by what you have Karani James and Aileen Franzique have been able to do, which was to get a scholarship and being recognized on that international level, that same opportunity will be presented to the juniors once the right individuals are in place to see that talent.
Good morning. I haven't heard talks of the cost to host the event, even if you don't want to give me a specific, just an average of what it would take to host this international event, as well as how do you intend to fund the event?
Well, the cost of an event of this magnitude will definitely run you into the millions. Therefore, with the connections that I have with the coaches, the athletes, and agents, I am seeing and using my expertise to see how we can cut costs in that area. And with the help of the private sectors, the government support, and hopefully, whoever else want to be a part of the sponsorship bid, then that can help cover the cost.
In reference to your desire to showcase, spicy Grenadian welcome or Grenadian environment, what do you need from members of the public, Grenadians, to ensure that this is a successful event? And I'm not just talking about our usual warm welcome, but in terms of volunteering, the services that our local companies and so may need to offer to ensure that this is a success.
Well, like you say, the warm welcome is a plus. We just need everyone to just show up and support in numbers, and just be who you are, present yourself and do what Grenadians do best, This is a Grenada event, and everyone can be a part of it, and therefore we welcome the volunteers, we welcome the athletes to take part, we welcome Grenada because this is a Grenadian event, so we welcome everyone to be a part of it. It's not restricted to any restrictions of anyone, so therefore we encourage members to basically just whatever they feel of expertise, and we can always use the advice or help, and so just we welcome it.
Just to follow up, how can you volunteer your services or your time to the event?
Well, the reason Chris is here is basically to put some structure to the Grenada Invitational. We already have an LOC in place, but he is directing us on how we should undertake the process to delivering an international games. So the question of volunteers and so on, we have already identified Mr. John Williams, who has a Volunteers Association. I think they were one of the best groups in the region during Cricket World Cup in 2007. So we will be working along with that organization, not trying to reinvent the wheel. In terms of costing, again, Chris is directing us on budget. And in terms of income, we've identified some revenue streams, of course, ticket sales, sponsorship. There are private investors who are interested, government funding, and importantly, broadcast rights. We have, because of the caliber of athletes who will be coming to Grenada, we have an opportunity to sell the broadcast rights to a major network or major networks for broadcast regionally and internationally. But again, Chris's purpose here is to provide structure to the LOC to let us know what we have to look at, and what we have to look for. So in one of the meetings, I think the meeting with the Tourism Authority yesterday, we were able to identify the main areas where athletes will be coming from, not from South Africa, but elsewhere in the world. So once Chris is finished with the meetings, and obviously we'll be in constant contact with him, we will be able to answer those questions in more detail as we go further along.
Why not from South Africa?
It's far. The questions are general and not just for the media. Sponsors, Dennis, Chris, Uli.
One last one for me, Fireman, this is for you. Give us a feel as to the Chris Brown Invitational. Where is it at this time, and some of the high points of that event?
Well, this is the Grenadian Invitational.
We want to, take a page after you.
You want to take a page after me? Well, you have what was the driving force behind the Chris Brown Invitational here in Grenada. So that's the volume of that event. You got the whole, whatever you see here is what was there and now is here.
Chris, can you give me an idea of the amount of athletes, international athletes, you have brought to your games for the last 2 years?
For the last 2 years, the first year we had 84 athletes, 84, 85 athletes. The second year we had 119 to 126 that came, and not only that, but we had to turn away athletes because they all heard about the event and everyone wanted to participate, but it's only 8 lanes and we are not the world championship where we run rounds and rounds. So we had to turn away a lot of great talent. It's to show the caliber. And so I know that here in this meet here in Grenada, and a lot of athletes that never been here before are looking forward. Once I put the memo what I already started, they're looking forward to showing up in Grenada show, and I'm going to have to do the same thing, which is to turn around a few big names and a few good names that maybe some of y'all might want to see, but they don't make the list.
One more question. I know that you will, what are your recommended number for Grenada meet, for our meet?
Well, that all entails of the events that Grenada wants to see. There's again, like I say, it's only 8 lanes on the track, and depending on the events that meet the interests of the people and the LOC, then we would then target those specific events. I know for a fact that we will definitely have the 400 meters. I know that for sure. I would like to see Karani James at home, Braylon Taplin, both of them race at home. I mean, I know it's going to be epic because you talking about Karani James set the place on fire in the Bahamas, and I'm glad I wasn't in that race. So I can only imagine what he intends to do for his home people. But we intend to have a great show. The events are mostly going to be sprints. You will see some hurdle events also in there, but we intend to have a great crop of elite athletes that's going to grace the shores of Grenada. And also, to answer the minister question of sports, I wish you had asked me that question about the Olympics being held in Grenada. I think that in the region, yes, I do believe that if the right people are put in the right places, I think that with all of our sister islands and countries, Trinidad, Jamaica, Bahamas, all of the islands, I think that with that being said and done, we can all play a role in hosting an event. You can always have an event here in Grenada, let everyone fly to Grenada and watch maybe the swimming. Then they can travel next door to Jamaica and host some other event in Jamaica. But I think as a region, if we collectively come together and host the Caribbean Olympics, then I believe that we have room to say we hosted, so everyone will be able to take part in that games and say, well, we could brag for the whole entire region that we held swimming here, we held track and field here, tennis was held in this country. And so I believe that if we come together collectively as a nation, a powerful region, I believe that we can host the Olympic Games, and that'll be the first time ever.
That's provided we have not only
Thank you very much, Chris. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming out today. Thank you to our special guest, Mr. Chris Brown. Thank you to Minister Bola Bascom, who flew in specifically for today. Thank you to Colin and Kwame, Mr. Grant from the Tourism Authority. I would like to say a special thank you to Francine, because Francine has been very, very active in making sure Chris has had a good time. I think next time I ask for accommodations, I want to specify the hotel. You can't just send him to Spicy. Yeah, and thank you to the members of the LOC. We are up and running. Thank you to the government of Grenada for the support. I heard Kwame mention money. I did not know we were getting money from the Athletic Association. Thank you. Thank you to the media. And with 7 months to go, we are very excited at the LOC level, and it's going to be a great run. We are excited about putting on a fantastic event on the 8th of April 2017 and continuing the legacy that has been started by the wonderful athletes of Grenada Carrick Competitive. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.